All right, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about my self critique analysis for the interview that I just submitted. First and foremost, I think it was really important for me to acknowledge the fact that in real life, I have mainly only been working with younger age kids. Specifically, like third grade and younger is generally like the population I kind of work with. So it does look a little bit different working with kids than it does to be working with a population that's kind of like middle school age and above. I think the main thing that was kind of hard for me is that like not necessarily when you have an intake with a younger client, for the most part you do like the confidentiality type of stuff with the client and their guardian. At least I know that's what I've done in the past because, generally speaking, a younger kid doesn't really have, is not really able to grasp what the concept of confidentiality is if you're just speaking with them one-on-one. So I think it's always really helpful to have their guardian, parent or guardian, present in the room. That way, like, they do know that you did talk about it, and they can also help to remind their child or things like that. So I think that was really important for me at first, is because I was kind of thinking like, what do I even tell, Paige, who was, I think she was a college age, no, she was a high school age student, is because I have never really worked with that population, so their needs are a lot different than a younger kid's. And so I was thinking like, for a younger kid, mostly we talk about like coping skills and we like make stress balls or we do breathing exercises, and like, an older person might think that's kind of silly or goofy for them to do. So that was a challenge at first, is to adjust my mind and my thinking of a younger age individual to someone who's older and dealing with a lot more like real life problems, that and not so much being a product of their environment like a lot of younger kids are. Let's see. During the interview, Paige did kind of throw me a curveball when we were talking about confidentiality. Like I said, I did mention to her, I gave my whole spiel about anything you say with me is confidential, but I want you to know that if it involves hurting yourself or others or a general population, then that is something that I'm like mandated by law to report. Paige was very understanding about that as my client during the video, but Paige did ask me a question that kind of got me thinking. She said that what if she were to talk to me in a session about another person who has talked about hurting someone else or hurting, others. And that kind of got me thinking because I wasn't really sure. I think my initial response was that, they're not my client, and like my main priority was Paige as my client. But I said, as a mandated reporter, I probably would still report that, just also because of my feelings and my morals towards the situation too. Is if I can keep someone out of harm, that's what I would want to do. So I think definitely next time, instead of giving a client like false information, I think I would like prefer to fact check and then get back to them on it. And so just say, hey, like, I'm not quite sure, like, it's a really good question, but I'm gonna go ahead and check with someone on that and then get back to you and let you know for sure, so I'm not confusing you in any way. So I think that was kind of like my only like curveball throughout the videos, that I was just like, I don't really know the answer to this, but I was wanting to find out. And then I think I could also listen a little bit better instead of ask so many questions. I think a lot of the times when I was like listening, it was to respond with the question to get another answer instead of just validating that, their feelings are real and it's okay for them to be upset, and that, those are real life struggles that they're dealing with, and like it's okay, and we can work on them together. And I think too often they would tell me something, or Paige would tell me something, and I'd be ready to respond with a follow-up question and like get a little more information about that before I like validate and say, oh, like that must be tough, how does that make you feel, something like that. So like kind of give a little bit more of a comment on how I recognize what they're going through and like give them some kind of confirmation that I did hear them. So it could be anywhere from like repeating back what they said to me, or like I said, validating that I did understand what they were saying. So I think that's about it. But I did really enjoy this assignment. It was fun because I did it in a little group and we got to, talk about a lot of different things like ethical dilemmas, confidentiality, and then just talk about a lot of different problems that clients deal with. So